A good choices matter interactive horror game is something that mirrors that of an 80s horror slasher. Something that's fun to experience with friends while also can be kind of funny to look at and can occasionally hit the note that it's actually trying to. And ever since 2015, Supermassive Games has established themselves as just that with their flagship title Until Dawn releasing as their first foray into the genre. The PlayStation console exclusive launched to almost unanimous praise and personally landed on my top 10 games of all time list. But ever since then, Supermassive Games have released shorter, multi-platform horror experiences that haven't quite hit the same, with Man of Medan hitting so-so, in my opinion, Little Hope not hitting whatsoever, and House of Ashes, while it seems to have done good, I never played. I even covered it a little bit leading up to launch, and I just never got around to it. And while there is an announced fourth game in the anthology, and that is the Season 1 finale called Devil in Me, Supermassive has went on to announce a new game entirely different from the Dark Pictures anthology series. So without further ado, let's break down everything we know about Supermassive's next game called The Quarry. Hello Internet, this is Future Me. I realized after recording this video that I never exactly said what genre and type of game this is other than my opening, and I'm sorry, I guess I just kind of assumed. What you're getting is the third-person choices matter narrative game with horror elements. If you've played Until Dawn, it's probably going to be a lot closer to that rather than Dark Pictures. But one thing from Dark Pictures that will be in this game is the co-op experience, which can be the couch co-op where you pass around the controller, or online co-op where you choose which characters you'll be playing as, or things like that. Or, of course, solo, as you always do. Quick time events, as well as moral decisions, play the big key point of the game, as well as the occasional scare from here or there. And yeah, so anyway, hopping back into the video. Thanks. First up, as I said, developed by Supermassive Games, it will be published by 2K Games, which is a change from the Dark Pictures anthology, who was developed by Bandai Namco, as well as Until Dawn, which was developed by Sony Interactive Entertainment. In just a few moments, I'll pull from an interview with Bloody Disgusting talking about how the partnership with 2K Games has impacted their development of The Quarry, and this game's actually not that far away. It's actually going to be coming out June 10th, 2022 on PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, as well as Xbox One, which I think is really interesting and says a lot about the thoughts of the game if they're really that confident in doing it so soon. If you hadn't seen any of the leaks that this was a trademarked title that they were potentially working on with 2K, then you would have no idea this game was coming. The game's description reads like this. It's late summer in the remote forest of upstate New York, and the teen counselors of Hackett's Quarry have the camp to themselves for one final night. That means no kids, no adults, and no rules. In this thrilling and cinematic tale, you'll control the fates of all 9 camp counselors as their party plans unravel in an unpredictable night of terror. With life or death decisions around every turn, the choices you make will determine how the story unfolds. Now you might be thinking to yourself, you know, this sounds a lot more like Until Dawn with the teens and the Night of Terror than that of any of the games in the Dark Pictures anthology, and you would be correct. In a few moments I'll go over everything I mean about how this is more of a spiritual successor to Until Dawn rather than Dark Pictures anthology. But for now, let's talk a little bit about the cast for the game. We've got some big ones here. We've got Chris, played by David Arquette. He is the owner, operator, and all-around father figure at the Hackett's Quarry summer camp. Chris is devoted to making sure his campers surrender their cell phones and enjoy the wonders of nature. This is my theory. I think Chris is bad. 100% I think Chris is bad. I think the Dewey, you know, he's a good guy all the time. He's a good guy. He's not going to be good in this. You know, why is he getting rid of their cell phones? You know, just saying. Next, we've got Laura, played by Siobhan Williams, and she seems to be the smart girl who has the kind of class clown boyfriend, Max, played by Skylar Gisondo. After that, we've got Abigail, the kind of artistic, nerdy, shy girl, played by Ariel Winter from Modern Family. And then Caitlin, played by Brenda Song, who is the de facto leader of the group at some times, because she is very ingenious. Then after that, we've got Nick, the soft-spoken teen heartthrob, who is played by Evan Evagora. After that, another counselor we have is Emma, played by Halston Sage, who seems to be like a social media influencer of some kind, and she's always documenting and capturing things on her phone. Interesting to see how the lack of phones dynamic will play in with her. She also seems to be where most of the drama will be coming from for the camp. Next up, we have Ryan, played by Justice Smith, who from his description is a bit of a loner, and most people, quote, won't get whatever's coming through his headphones. After that, we've got Dylan, played by Miles Robbins, who seems to be anyone who was born today thinking, oh wow, I really wish I was born in the 80s, put into an actual scenario where it's an 80s slasher. Oddball sense of humor, deep musical knowledge, and of course terrified of rejection. just like me. The final counselor is Jacob, and he's played by Zach Tinker. It says that Jacob is accustomed to being the most popular guy around, despite some self-centeredness and obnoxious bravado befitting your typical jock. Jacob's got a charming streak and genuinely wants his fellow counselors to have a good time, especially Emma. So yet again, this seems to be the Mike to Jessica dynamic. Yet again, the kind of, you can tell social media kind of drama queen, and then the jock. Interesting to see how they will play on our expectations with that as well. Now, there are more cast members to the game as well, and this is where it truly, truly shines. Ted Raimi playing Travis, the sheriff, who of course you'll know Ted Raimi as Sam Raimi's brother. And then you have Jedediah, played by Lance Hendrickson from fucking Aliens. That's really badass. And he was also in Detroit Become Human, so he's not really a stranger to these types of games. Another character is Bobby, played by Ethan Suplee, Constance, played by Lynn Shay, and Eliza, played by Grace Zabriskie. So as you can see, that's a pretty good all-star cast, all things considered, and we'll talk a little bit more about their casting decisions later. But now I'd like to kind of transition into the interview with Bloody Disgusting, talking about the developer-publisher relationships with 2K, as well as a few other things. From the website Bloody Disgusting, a horror-themed website with the creative director Will Biles, one question that was asked was, with classics like Borderlands and BioShock to their name, I can imagine that working with 2K has opened up a few doors for you guys, so how exactly did the partnership affect development? And Will responded saying things like, 2K was great, they gave them a lot of freedom, and basically saw the horror genre as something that was achievable rather than a niche thing. And he went on to say that with their help, we can guarantee a longer and more intricate experience than our previous games. Piggybacking off of that same interview, I actually did have a couple other things I wanted to go over that seemed actually pretty important to kind of the mindset going into this game compared to, say, you really kind of bounced off the Dark Pictures games a little bit. As I've already talked about a little bit, the length of the game will be much longer and ideally more intricate than that of the Dark Pictures games, and something more in line with that of Until Dawn. But one thing that Quarry does seem to have exactly in common with every other game that they have released so far in this genre is that there seems to always be an emphasis on an all-star cast. Maybe not the whole cast, but this time it really seems like they're not pulling any punches. With someone like David Arquette from Scream, Brenda Song from, I'm gonna say The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, but you can say whatever the hell you want there, to even Ted Raimi, who is the brother of Sam Raimi, the director of the Spider-Man movies that you know and love, as well, of course, as the Evil Dead movies. The question is, how did the studio manage to juggle such an impressive cast of horror royalty? And that's where Will reveals that this was pretty much their dream cast. When they had their 90-page script for the game, they wrote out these characters with certain actors in mind, and he says that luckily for once they basically got everyone they wanted this time, kind of implying that in the previous games, whether that be Dark Pictures or whatever, they didn't get everyone they wanted, which is really interesting, and I'm really curious to kind of know who that was. But this is really promising that the characters that were written and the roles that were written for certain actors were pretty much able to be completely brought to life in every way possible. Even going on to say that, quote, because of the sheer size of the game, the actors would get an incomplete script, featuring only their parts of the story, but they all kind of understood what they're going for, and that the performances are also fully motion captured this time, with very little keyframing corrections made after the recording sessions. And pretty much, if you don't know what that means, is that there's not as much hand animating, there's less potential for it to look robotic or not, completely natural movements of the characters. Something that at times I did have minor issues with in previous games. But continuing on, there was another question asking about the media that influenced the Quarry. And right off the bat, me personally looking at this, I could already tell that Friday the 13th was a big one, being a bunch of camp counselors, and the poster for the game itself kind of looks like a Friday the 13th type thing. But another one that was mentioned was Sleepaway Camp, which I didn't know personally. But overall, Will states that they want to go for the anachronistic 80s feel and the retro experience without cell phones or internet, even though it is in the modern day that this game is set. And that is why the cell phones are just taken away during the camp, which makes sense. And finally, the other big inspiration is that the game feels a lot more like Evil Dead than anything else, which is really interesting, and especially with Ted Raimi being involved, I'm really curious to see how that pans out. And that is mostly it for Will Biles' interview with Bloody Disgusting. Of course, he goes on to say that he's excited for everyone to play the game and things like that, as well as one tiny last bit of information that I did want to kind of throw out there as something that was a little interesting, and that was the uniqueness of the video games compared to movies and how one medium over the other is better. And one thing that he said was that they can actually make players feel guilt, which is an emotion that is unique to video games over movies, as you can make a bad decision that potentially results in a character's death or wrongdoing. And I think that's very interesting. something that I don't think the Dark Pictures games did too well. Again, I haven't played House of Ashes, but I didn't really think that they worked too well in this. However, I do think Until Dawn did an exceptional job at this. However, that was a single player experience, and this is a co-op one. I'm really curious to see how you can play that out. Well, there you have it, folks. There's everything that I could find out about the Quarry, Supermassive's next game. I'm really excited for it, and I will be jumping in to review this game. So subscribe if that's something that you want to see. But let me know what you think. Are you excited for it? You know, it's pretty soon, so we don't have that much time to be hype or anything like that. But I think if it can deliver on everything that it promises to be, it'll be a very good experience. And that's where I'm sitting. You know, cautiously optimistic. I didn't really like Dark Pictures, but here's hoping that this is a little bit better an experience. If nothing else, we'll get more bang for our buck with a lot longer story. So yeah, thanks for watching, and bye.